Nasralla, Recruits.
JP Mancini, Cowboys. GM Kolethras, Dark Horses.
Welcome to Breaking the Huddle. I'm JP Mancini. Another episode minus Ross Castleton, so we're expecting higher ratings once again. With me this week we have from the Recruits, Fadi Nasralla. From the Cowboys, member of the Flag Plus Football All-Name Team, Vince Mancini.
Again.
And from the Winter Love Cows and the Spring Dark Horses, JM Kolethras. All right, guys, obviously there's been some rough games the past couple of weeks. If anyone follows on the flag wall, I know some of you do, some of you don't, but there's been some issue with people complaining about injuries, officiating, how perhaps some of these rules are affecting these injuries, and how it might be either affecting the games in a negative way. I just wanted to see your thoughts on the officiating so far. Obviously, we don't take shots at specific referees, but how you felt it's been going so far. We'll start with you, Jam. How do you feel about it?
For the most part, these referees are here as a hobby the same as we are. I mean, yes, they're getting paid, but this is something that they should be coming to enjoy doing. They shouldn't be targets that we're constantly focusing on every so often. I mean, yeah, bad calls going to be made, but generally bad calls don't always change the outcome of the match. It's going to go one way or the other. There have been some injuries that have been complained about and this and that refs haven't been seeing. I haven't really been present at those games, so I can't really comment on that specifically. Like, it is a case-by-case situation, I'd say. So it really depends on who's interpreting what. Because, I mean, Rob can be at one game, watch the officiating, and it can go beautifully. And the next game, there could be conflicts of interest just between what ref is doing what. But at the end of the day, they're really just the same as us. They're here to enjoy the football game.
Okay, Vince, your thoughts?
So far, everything's been fairly consistent. Like any league you play in, you're gonna get judgment calls. That was mentioned. It goes on both sides of the ball. They don't do it on purpose. It sometimes comes up. As for the injuries, I find that it's going relatively well. There's been a little bit more contact than I was expecting. As long as it was known what was allowed to go, what wasn't going to go. So when you're blindsided, it's kind of like, what was that? But once you know that it's fair game on both sides of the ball, then you just play the game the best as you can, the best of your ability. So I think the refs are doing a really good job, and it's pretty much fairly on both sides of the ball.
Do you think the refs are letting certain things go one game and the next game they're not? Or do you think that's affecting your play, or do you feel it's been relatively consistent?
Actually, that's a trick. It's pretty much figure out in the first couple of series how the game's gonna be developed. Each set of referees brings their own style of watching the game goes. Mm-hmm. So it's. Last game we played was a big contact game, a lot of roughhousing going on that was let go, where other games you couldn't breathe on another player where you're flagged for everything. So you just need to feel it out the first part of the game and then adjust your game accordingly.
I really do agree with what Vince says, because I mean there's some refs who will tolerate everything from just slight pass interference to smack talk, and there's others who really just crack down on it and let it, like, they can try and cut it down before it builds up and snowballs.
Yeah.
So it really is subjective.
Fadi, what do you think about it?
For the short time I've been in Flag Plus Football, I always felt that the officials were fair to both teams. Obviously they're going to make mistakes like everybody, but I never felt that a mistake was made on purpose to hold us back from a win. That's just something that's part of sports. We have to deal with it. And like the guy said, some officials are going to have different styles, and that's how they want to control the game. But I think they're here for the right reasons, and they do a pretty good job overall.
So then, you don't think that there are referees who maybe have a bias towards a certain player and use that as a way of hurting the team, perhaps, feeling this person has had a reputation as doing things in the past. So you don't think the referees pick on individual players?
I've never seen this.
Okay.
And as far as the injury goes, I don't think officiating can really relate to injuries. That's more the playing style of a player, the reaction that another player is going to have in a certain situation, and the referee can control that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the correlation between the two is, I think what people were saying was that the referees are sometimes letting things go too far, and that's what's causing the injuries. I mean, the past weekend we've had a couple of injuries, a guy with a broken collarbone, a guy with a pretty severely injured ankle, and we felt that the referees were just missing calls, and the game was getting too rough, and that allowed those situations to happen. So that was kind of the correlation between the two. So then I guess any of you don't think there are changes that need to be made to the rules, or towards that you feel they're set in stone and that's the way it should be right now?
I guess it's more the players' attitudes who come to game. I mean, just as long as we keep enforcing the fact that this is a recreational league, like Rehan said, that no one's here filming us except for our own personal enjoyment, that it's really, all you have to take home from it is that it's a fun game and you shouldn't be putting shoulders or elbows into it.
Vince, what about you? You think the rules are? I mean, you've played in a couple of different leagues, I assume. You said you played in a touch league, so do you feel that that it's just normal for these kind of things to happen?
Absolutely. You know, there's like the X-Men. They have that giant of a Bohemian.
Nicholas Abelhauser.
Exactly. So you go up against a guy who's 5'7", going up against a guy who's 6'4", has jumping power. When you're going for both playing the ball, you're both going up. How you come down is depending on the ankle, right? I can land on yours, you can land on mine. It falls over. It's not out of spite. It's out of aggressive to the ball type of thing. No, you can't. Those are going to happen. Incidental contact. You're both coming. You know, one's doing in, one's doing it out, and all of a sudden you end up in each other's faces. And there's a lot of bodies. You're 6-on-6 in a very small space. So and you're going full tilt. So if you don't hit the brakes,
I think obviously part of it is that you have to attribute the fact that it's not. I mean, it's maybe not a contact sport per se, but there's not too many sports where there's no contact whatsoever. So I mean, that's part of it as well. Fadi, any comments about the rules? Or you like the rules the way
I think
they are?
It's good how it is. Our game is competitive. The guys that are on the field, they want to win, and they play hard, and those things are going to happen because they have a drive to play good football and to win. And we just have to manage the game in order that it doesn't get the tempers don't go too hot, and in between plays, let it be pretty much peaceful, and if there's something that's going to happen, it's going to be on a play. We don't want.
I don't think in Division D you're going to have too many of the hotheads. No. I mean, you realize we're in Division D. It's not though we're all competitive and hard fighting. We're realizing we're at the caliber we're at for a reason, and we're there to have a good time and do the best that we can. In the 4 years I played in Flag Plus, I've never been in a game where there's been a confrontation to the point where it's escalated to actually ejections or actually face-to-face name-calling thing. It hasn't happened yet. You know, touch wood, it doesn't happen while we're playing.
Well, I mean, besides your games, perhaps those games haven't been so bad, but there have been some issues so far this season where first of all, we've instituted the discipline committee. I don't know if everyone knows about that. We have instituted certain players who sit on the committee to rule on confrontations or situations that arrive in the games. And it seems like they've been busier than the league's ever had been before when it comes to these discipline situations. We never really had this many, I think, in such a short span of time. Why do you think that all of a sudden that we seem to have so many at one point? Jam, we'll start with you.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily because of the fact that there's a disciplinary committee that's been created. I think it's just incidental, but at the same time, like, it's the spring league. It's a lot hotter. Tempers go off shorter. I mean, it gets hot in the arena, and someone puts an elbow the wrong way, even if it's by accident, you're going to want to stand your ground. And I think that it's a good mix. You've got the right amount of FPF staff with players from the league, actual players who you can respect, Ben Joseph and Edward Choshan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these are guys that I've played with, and they're names that you can respect, and they're smart guys. They play the game. And I don't know, I think it's really just coincidental that the disciplinary committee has been created at the same time where there's so many penalties.
Interestingly enough, Rehan Sarwar believes that the heat is the reason for all the violence. He tends to think that it's so hot people are just losing their heads much quicker.
That's it. Yeah, I really agree.
No, absolutely. And Vince, what do you think? You think there's some sort of correlation between the two, or is there something else?
I would. You know what? I think it's. Maybe the heat has something to do with it. It doesn't affect anybody on my team type of thing. It's just that it gets warm in the summertime. We know that. I think it's more the spring fever. Getting into football season starting up again. A lot of the guys are back into camp. Some of the younger teams are getting ready for back to CJEP or back into university or back into their local teams.
Yeah.
So the testosterone level kind of jumps up a level type of thing. The Cowboys are in it. We work the next day. It's kind of like we're there to blow off some steam, have a good time, and make sure we survive to get back to our jobs. So
I think that's a good point. I think the fact that you have all those guys, starting their spring camps when they're really fighting for spots, maybe those that level of compete is still very high. So it's hard to kind of switch it on and off from one thing to the other. And Fadi, what about you?
I think Vincent's touching a good point. Other than that, maybe the Heat, I don't see a real correlation. Maybe we go the rest of the year and we don't have anything happening.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, obviously we hope that that's the case.
We hope.
We hope that for the rest of the season it kind of dies down, but we'll see what we can do. So this is for the Division D. We're talking a little about Division B a little bit. I know, Jim, you're not in Division D, but you obviously have done some research. You know a lot about it, so that's fine.
I also played Division 5, so a lot of the teams that were in Division 5 have passed through.
Very similar. So Division D has been absolutely competitive. I don't think anyone can question the level of competitiveness so far. There's been some games that guys are blowing teams out. The next week you have a team in last place playing really tight with the team in first place. I think a great example was this weekend the Patriots, or Patriots, beat the Warhawks by about a touchdown, and then last weekend they beat the Time Bombs 56-0. So I think, and the Warhawks were kind of out of it. They were winless to this point. So I think that was a bit of a shocker, but it just shows that you really can't just leave any team alone and say, oh, we're going to go in there and beat them badly. So, I mean, obviously that's what we look for, but do you feel there are any teams in the division, Vince, you would know, you've played in the league for 4 years, do you feel that there's any teams that are really making that jump, the up-and-comers in Division D, guys that you can see playing at the higher level in a year or two?
Well, from what I was saying, most of the guys already made the jump up into the higher divisions from the D's, from the 4s last year to the spring. We're still in D, trying to get our flow back. The Eagles look pretty tough from what I saw. A couple of their games, making me a little bit nervous when we have to face them. But other than that, we take it one game at a time. Like you said, you can't slack off at any game. Everybody comes here to play and play it the best as they can. And they're in Division D for a reason. So it's there's a pretty good parity amongst Division D. Yeah,
and Fadi, what about you? Do you think there's any teams in there that you have seen that really look like they're making a big jump?
I'm going to talk to you about lockdown a little bit.
Lockdown?
I think they've made a big progress from winter to now.
Really?
Right? And I don't think they're ready to go D4, but they're going to be tough in D5 in the winter. I think they'll come back.
So you played them last year in the winter, right?
Last year, and I'm friends with them, and I see a couple of their games, and I really see the progress of a guy like Gianfranco Ranaldo. He's been playing really, really much.
Well, they had a win this weekend, if I'm correct.
They've won 3 in a row now.
Won 3 in a row. So this is a team that last year showed a little bit of inconsistency, but it's nice to see that they can win 3 in a row.
We beat them with the Wild Kittens, and they were dropping the ball, having a penalty or a snap on the ground every other play, and you don't see that anymore. And guys are more consistent, and they're more accountable to each other now.
Well, I think
it's been reflected.
The consistency issue, I think, is a big part of it. I mean, speaking to some of the guys in the league who are in the higher divisions, Division A, I was speaking to Carmen Police, who plays quarterback in Division A. I think everybody knows who he is. He's won a couple of championships, and he was saying he was watching some of the Division D games, and it wasn't that the guys in Division D couldn't make the plays that the guys in Division A make. It's the fact of how often they can do it. Right. Maybe a guy in Division D makes that play 2 out of 10 times, when a guy in Division A makes it 8 out of 10 times. So it's more that consistency level, and seeing guys who can learn to be more consistent. So that's a big part of it. And Jim, what about you? Division D. We'll stick with that for now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know there's a team that you're sweet on that I'm pretty sweet on too. Is Golden Eagles. I think with Alex David and Kevin Lubin leading that team, they're just going to keep going up and up, and they're starting to get real comfortable with each other. I mean, you mentioned that there was a chance they won't make the playoffs. I think they're definitely contenders for the playoffs.
Agreed.
And they're going to make it at least the semifinals.
First of all, I think Alex David only played in the winter. He's not in the spring. But Kevin Lubin, who I think is perhaps one of the best athletes in Division D. I don't know if anyone has played him before, but the guy has just been absolutely fantastic. And since the Golden Eagles have switched to him at quarterback, they haven't lost a game yet. So that's a big part of it. But what about some of the other teams that I have down? Park X Street, Maximum Carnage, the Eagles. Vince mentioned the Eagles, who have really made a huge jump. We're still undefeated after 5 weeks. They've made an absolutely huge jump, considering some of the guys that have been in the league before. Is there any of those teams that you feel are, besides maybe the Eagles, that have made a huge jump?
Well, Patriot also. I mean, you've got Etienne Chauvin, he's comfortable with his guys. Like, he'll throw a pass when there's no one there, knowing that one of his receivers will be there in time to catch the ball. And that's huge, that a quarterback can have that much trust in his receivers. And they have a big squad too. They've got like 10 or 11 guys. So just the sheer fact that they can switch from offense to defense seamlessly without being tired, I think that's huge when you're facing a team with 6 or 7 players at most.
Fadi, what about you? Any of those teams? Or
I see Maximum Carnage as a team that can progress in this league. It's good that they start in this Division D right now, but they're going to be able to make that jump in D4 if they have their quarterback and their core players back. if not in the winter, but in the short term, medium term maybe.
Vince, what about I don't know if you've played any of these teams. Have you played Patriots yet? Not yet.
No, they're not. We're not going to play them.
Don't play them.
We
Oh, that's
see them
good
in
for
the
you.
playoffs.
I think you'll be happy that you don't have to play them in the season.
I'm not worried. Don't forget the Cowboys. I mean, from winter
Undefeated as well.
undefeated, yeah. From the winter into the spring, we're doing pretty well. We picked up a couple extra players who are making their game changers as well. Scott and Dominic are shoring up the defense and an extra set of hands on offense, making John a lot more consistent on the pass and that drop ball that gets away from you.
Yeah.
And we're able to shut defenses down. Basically, the key is if you can stop a couple of drives, puts you in a better position to come back the other way. So.
Absolutely. What about specific players in Division D so far? Is there anyone that has absolutely stood out, Vince? We'll stick with you. And any one guy that you've played against, or maybe a guy on your own team that you felt is just really excelling at this level right now?
To be honest with you, on the names of the other teams, we don't go through research, and we only see them once in the blue moon. So I can't say the quarterback over at the X-Men did a good job in consistency. He's mobile and can throw a pretty good ball.
Swaminidan is the last name, I believe is how you pronounce it.
They have a one-dimensional offense, unfortunately. That's if you can shut that down, I think you can pretty much take care of business. That's the only one that's all I come across it out of the 5 games that I've played that I've said, you know what, this guy is giving us a hard time on mobility and.
Fadi, what about you? Is there a guy that you've seen specifically right now that's giving you a lot of trouble?
Andrew Dana from Lockdown.
Okay.
I'm impressed with this guy every time I see him play. He plays with a lot of passion and a lot of athleticism. The way he hustles on defense, he gets out like a rocket to the ball. I think he got 47 tackles in the winter.
Oh, really?
Something ridiculous.
Okay.
And there's a reason why. He's really fast, but he plays with a lot of drive, and he wants to make every play he can. And on offense, I saw him make an incredible circus catch the other day. Unfortunately, he missed. He had only 1 foot in bounds, but it was one of the circus catches. The guy falls on the ground, keeps the ball, everything. I'm really impressed with him.
That's good. And Jam, what about you? I mean, I know you're not playing,
I know,
but you've still seen some.
I feel like I'm going to mention another quarterback, which unfortunately this league is very quarterback centralized.
Oh, it's a quarterback-driven league.
But
absolutely.
I know Vince isn't going to say it, but John Moody is a huge plus for his team. He's a smart player with the deep ball. He's consistent, and I think that's all you really need in Division D to excel. He's already played in higher divisions too, so I don't know if that counts, but he's definitely
He's
strong
not a quarterback in the KTFL either. He's a halfback. He's a regular player, so he's doing this on the sideline as a hobby to us, just to keep the boys together.
Well, I think that's a big part of it, specifically in the lower divisions. If you have a quarterback who can make that long throw, I think you really stretch the defense out, which causes a lot of issues for those guys. And okay, so we've done a little bit of Division D now, Jam. What about Division C specifically for you? Is there a team that you feel in Division C can make that jump maybe to A and B or to Division 1 and 2 in the winter?
Well, for the most part right now, we've had a tough schedule for the first half. So we've seen a lot of the really, really difficult teams. The 2 that come to mind to me right now are Terror Squad, led by Tam Villadef. Yeah. And Flight of the Concords or Fools of the Country. They're a great team, and they're a lot of fun to play against. They're sportsmanlike. So I mean, those 2 teams, they're smart, they're fast, and they're all athletes. So those are 2 huge.
Well, we saw Fools of the Country or Flight of the Concords as they go by in the winter. Made it to the finals last year in Division 4 and put up a very good fight against the Warriors, who were undefeated in the conference finals. Yeah. So a team like that, obviously, with a quarterback like Martin Touga, kind of mentoring Jonathan Lemieux, I think makes a big difference for them as well. What about a team like Brocasian? Have you seen Brocasian?
I haven't actually played Brocasian, but they're not on our schedule. They're on the other half. But they look like a group of friends who will get together and practice like once a week as well as play. And I think that's a good thing, that when you mesh with your friends and really start doing well, it's an incentive to keep practicing and doing well. So it's just a catch-22 of success.
And what about guys in Division C that you see will get better in the future? Do you see any guys that are in Division C now that will probably make that jump, or we'll see maybe playing Division 2 or 3 in the winter?
I'd like to keep him with me for as long as possible, but Kenton Lowe's on his way up, absolutely. I mean, a player like that, he can just keep running those streaks time after time and then make the interceptions on defense. I feel bad mentioning one of my own players, but he's a big game changer for us.
All right, well, like we mentioned before, all of you guys play in some of the lower divisions. I mean, that's obviously that's not taking a shot. It's just the way it is. There's so many divisions, and everyone can only play in a certain amount of divisions. But one of the interesting things about this league is that when you do play in the lower divisions, you really get to see some great athletes, in between games or in between your games, and you can see guys that really improve your play. Is there someone specifically that you've watched in the league, or somebody that helped you improve? I know Vince, it may be a little bit different for you because you're a little bit older than a lot of the guys in the league than us. Not taking a shot, but you are a little bit older. So, is there anyone in the league that you speak to outside your division that kind of gives you pointers, or that you just enjoy learning from?
One guy is Rick Nincheri. I tell you, watching the way he thinks. The guy knows the game inside out and backwards, and if you look at him, you're sitting there going, "You gotta be kidding me!" But pot shot at the Cowboys. Our average age is 40 years old, so I mean, we're playing against young guys all the time. So when we're pushing, we're pushed the whole way. So when you look at a guy like Rick, who's a little bit older than the rest of us, and still has a knack playing Division I and can put a ball in like anybody else, he's always there at the end of it. So
Rick's the Brett Favre of flag plus football. We're just waiting for him to go away, but he just keeps coming back.
Like I said, he just looks at him and you go, "You gotta be," walks on the field, "You gotta be kidding me!" And all of a sudden, you're schooled. You've been taught a lesson by someone, a master of the game. So, and the young guys that are playing with him are obviously a lot happier to be on his side of the ball than against him. So,
absolutely.
Is he playing in the spring?
He played a couple of games for the Shockers in Division A. He's not playing on a team full time in the spring, but I mean in the winter he played with the Hurricanes.
So, I didn't realize that, but from like I said, I'm just watching him over the years and just admiring the fact that at his age he's still able to produce.
Yeah, and don't worry. I think Rick will be back. I mean, I don't think he'll ever go away completely.
We'll bury him on a football field.
Yeah, exactly. Fadi, what about you? Is there any guys that you look up to or you've spoken to in the league?
Yeah, there's Corey Denny, his rusher.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm playing rusher for the first time in my life, and I think he's one of the best in my division. So I kind of look up to him, and he offered me some advice a couple of weeks ago, and that advice is starting to pay off, and every time I have an occasion, I'm going to look at him, or going to look at other good rushers that I know to kind of take from them.
That's good.
So, thanks, Corey.
And Jim, what about you?
Well, Rick Nincheri as well. I mean, he was a big help to me when I first started playing touch. He talked to me about different rushing plays and this and that. It's huge when you're a rusher for the first time, when you have a quarterback teaching you the ropes. But as well, someone who really sat me down and taught me the ropes is Robbie Robinson. Okay. He's definitely a strong player. He played 3 divisions in winter, so that's a big plus. He's a patient guy. He's polite and he enjoys the game. So that's someone you can really feel comfortable with when you're learning the ropes.
All right, well, and those are all important things. We're glad to have you guys aboard. Now we want you to do something special for us. This is a segment we have called Commissioner for a Day. So I mentioned to you all earlier, you each get to choose what you would do if you were the commissioner for a day. So if you're Rob Campana, which nobody wants to be, but if you are Rob Campana for a day, what would you do to change the league? We'll start with you, Fadi. Something you could add to the league, take away from the league, or something you just like to change?
There's a rule I'd like to change a little bit. Is the jumping rule. You can't ever leave your feet with the ball. I think the purpose of this rule is to protect the players from diving, hurting their heads. I will make it that you can dive forward on a play, like to score a touchdown, to advance the ball, because we end up penalizing a lot of great athletic moves that don't have an element of danger because the guy left his feet, but nothing was dangerous about it.
So you'd like to see the guy be able to dive forward and gain a couple extra few yards, or to leave your feet
what
at least.
We don't want, right?
Yeah, we don't.
We don't want guys hurting their heads this way, but if you stay upright.
Okay, so you say as long as you're jumping and staying upright, then that's okay.
I think it should be okay.
All right, and what about you, Vince? Is there a rule you'd like to change, or is the league perfect as it is?
To be honest with you, I have nothing. I'm just happy. I'm honestly grateful to play. The league's been really well organized, been really receptive to us coming into the league. As for flag rules, they're pretty much standard across the board, and it's really well run. That's one thing. Hats off to you guys and Robert as well. That it's extremely well run. The refs have been fair. The camaraderie has been great amongst all the teams. Like I said, all in the 4 years, there's been no animosity against any teams that we played against. We're here to have a good time and realize that it's a hobby, not a job. So, unfortunately, as a commissioner today,
You're terrible. You're the worst participant.
Air conditioning would be great in the spring. How's that? If you open the doors, or a little cross fan or something to keep things going, that's what I would do. I'd definitely
gets rid of the violence because there's some air.
Exactly.
Get some air.
You know what? Let's put some cross fans in there and just get some air moving in there. That'd pretty much be my job as commissioner for the day.
Good. And Jim?
Okay, I mean, I've played Division 5 and I'm playing Division C, so I really see the difference that a higher division player can make on a team, and there's restrictions that in Division 5 a Division 4 player cannot play. I think that just the amount of leadership that someone would bring to the table, like just having one person from an upper division, it can totally change the way a team meshes and plays together. I mean, if you look at the Love Cows when we first started with our 1-9 record, where we lost a game something like 50-0, to when we brought in John Rivedo, like just the difference right there is huge. Like we had the leadership of someone with a lot more experience, and that definitely changed the game for us.
So you'd like to see only, I assume, one guy from Division
absolutely.
4, right?
Yeah.
Not above that?
No, just one guy from Division 4 who was allowed to play in Division 5. I mean, I don't think it would make that much of a difference. And not only that, but I mean, not all teams will want to have that. They'll just want to stay as friends. But if they show up and there are only 5 guys, like having one guy sub for them one game, like that's the difference between losing a game and staying competitive.
Also, you penalize another team perhaps by, you forfeit that game. It's not, I mean, everybody likes to win. Nobody wants to win by a forfeit. Everyone obviously comes to play the game.
I mean, the field's there if you can have one person who will make the difference between that $100 being spent on the field and that $100 being spent to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we ask each person individual questions, but before we do that, I want to let Vince pitch his touch league to the rest of the guys. I told him I'd give him a minute or two to pitch it, so go ahead, Vince, if you want to say something.
President of the Kirkland Touch Football League. It's a 25 and up league. It's been one of the oldest organized football leagues in the city of Montreal. We play on Sunday mornings and Tuesday or Wednesday evenings, depending on the field times. It's $150 for 21 games guaranteed. There's 3 paid refs on the field. It turns into a fun football league. It's the only league I think it's a draft league, so you don't bring your own team in. Everybody goes into a pool. Everybody gets rated. They all comes out of the drafts. That means you have 8 equal teams coming out on a ratings, and it's a recreational beer league, I think, if you want to call it, for ex-athletes who still want to run it, play some pitch and catch. Again, what's great about the draft league is after 2-3 years of being in the league, you know everybody in the league. So it's 125 great guys that show up every twice a week to play ball. We start in August, first week of August, and we go right into November. And at 50, you get your banquet and everything else. Just a fun league, gentleman's league, and never issues disciplinary committee as well. And it's probably the cheapest league you'll ever play in.
Perfect. So if guys need to speak to you, they can come see you in the league, come see you around.
Yeah, we're kirklandtouchfootball.org if you want all the information you need. The only thing that we have right now is there's a rookie day, which is July 10th, which is also our draft day. It's basically an evaluation camp, so we can put a number to each player. And once we have a number, you'll go into the draft, slot it into your position, and you get drafted out that way. And again, August 1st we start. That's pretty much the key that we need. For anybody who's looking to have a good time, those who have played football and those who haven't played football, to be honest with you, it's more of a 70% have never played football, or it's always with the buddies hanging out, and 30% of us have played competitive football, youth, CJEP, university, but it doesn't factor into the whole gentleman's league. No nonsense, no swearing, no contact. It's pretty much controlled, so it's really fun league to enjoy. As you can see, we're having a blast. We all often make fun of it. It's like, they're just having a good time. Well, we are, and we're trying to keep you guys give you some competition. That's all we can ask for.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
So, Fadi, we'll start with you for the individual questions.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned you were a member of the Wild Kittens in the winter.
Absolutely.
Now, you guys had a bit of a magical run there towards the end of the season. As well as the Love Cows, you guys were. The Wild Kittens are often forgotten as a team that also made a huge step towards the end of the season. And tell us something about that team, that Wild Kittens team that made it to the conference finals. What was it that really turned it around for you at the end of the season?
We were a lot of players with not much football experience. I think one guy really played organized football, but we really it was a good group. We meshed well together, and we invested time and effort into it. Right? Every week we'd have a practice, and even if the record wasn't very good, we always kept on working at it. And Matt Sola, he improved during the season. He struggled at the beginning, learned the position. He was a little bit better every week. We kind of changed our offense to give the ball a little bit more to Adrien Montier as a running back, and we had some success off play action that way.
Okay.
He was also the rusher, and he had some key plays for us in our run. Other than that, we just kept on believing in ourselves, and we made some good stuff.
Perfect. Jem, for you, sort of on the same kind of thing, you mentioned your Love Cows. What is the biggest difference between your Love Cows team from the winter and your Dark Horses team now in the spring?
Well, I'm going to answer it literally, but Love Cows hopefully won't take offense to this, but I'm with a group of guys who enjoy practicing. So with that, I mean, you get to cover a lot of different things that you normally wouldn't get to do on the field. And with that, you see what works, what doesn't, and I just can't pitch it enough. I mean, even one-way practices, if you want to just have a pickup game with a bunch of other buddies, like that's huge, because I mean, otherwise you're making those errors on the field come Sunday, and that's not always a good thing. I mean, that really does explain how the Love Cows went 1-7 for the first 8 games until we turned it around.
So you think it was
I think,
practice and
and
repetition?
we're a bunch of guys, for the most part, we're all friends. We're comfortable with each other, and we're all around the same age. So I mean, we're free at the same times, and we'll come up with similar game plans, and we really spread the ball around. Whereas it was a bit more centralized with the Love Cows.
Okay, Vince, for you, I was looking at some of the Cowboys' scores early in the season, and it seems like you guys are just winning close games. You're finding ways to win those close games. What is it that's giving you that, guys, the slight edge over those other teams late in the games?
Just believing in ourselves. We're pretty consistent. We got John Moody as a quarterback, as you know. He's pretty solid back there on a regular basis. That was the difference between our winters, our poor season in the winter versus our good spring season, is that when we get down to the last drive and we're on the goal line, this time we're putting it across the line as opposed to being stopped with 2 plays left. So if you look at the scores, it's a total role reversal right now. So we're getting lucky. Also, the main advantage is we're up in the games going into late in the games. So is it a letdown or a last-minute drive? Like the scores are close at the end of the game, but it's their last drive coming in to make that score closer than it.
Okay.
So it's we're trying to play the prevent, and it's costing the scores to come in. It's like, okay, we'll do an umbrella type of thing, and they get running underneath, and then before you know it, with 5 plays left, they're punching it in with the last play of the game to make it
closer
37, 36.
Closer than it really is.
Well, that's but why the scores are close. We know what we're doing, type of thing.
Yeah.
But we're getting a run for money. There's no question about it. We're in every game, and we play to win every game. It's and it goes. It doesn't always go your way. Sometimes it does. It's a flip of a coin.
So far it hasn't.
Well, that's it. Like I said, in the wintertime it wasn't happening. We weren't able to get across the line. This year we're getting across the line and taking control of the game a little bit earlier on. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Fadi, for you, the recruits. A lot of people have noticed that you have Gino DeFazio, who often helps the recruits. What do you feel he brings to your team on the sidelines? Not necessarily having him as a player, but having him around. What does that bring to the team?
I think it brings a lot of. He helps us with our technique.
Okay.
He's gonna give us pointers about how we can improve our individual play. But for the most part, he gives us the freedom of play calling and on both offense and defense. We also have John, who's there more regularly, who really stands on the sideline for the whole duration of the game to help us out a little bit.
Good. And Jim, for you, I wanted to ask you about your involvement in touch leagues. You mentioned your conversations with Rick and Cherry and how he's helped you. What from those touch leagues has translated over to the flag leagues? Is there one thing specifically that you feel has really translated over from one to the other?
Well, I mean, when I made the jump from flag to touch, you go from 4 downs to 3 downs, and that right there, I mean, you've got to really rely on getting consistent passes rather than banking or throwing a prayer deep. It's really, the more consistent you can be with short passes in touch, the more successful you are, and that does translate well back into FPF. Another thing is, like I said, in touch, I met VPC and Robbie Robinson, and that's how I started practicing with those guys. That's how I met John Rivedo and Andrew Carruthers, who are now on my team.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the involvement, like you said, it's camaraderie. Like, you're with groups that you really enjoy being with, and you'll find ways to be with them more. Like you'll start a new team with them on your group, and that's a huge difference for you.
Of course, so the networking is obviously a big part of it as well. Okay. And for Vince, we talked about the Cowboys. You mentioned you've known these guys are all around the same age, a little bit older. How is this connection? What is the connection between all you guys? How have you known each other? And what is your experience playing football together before flag football or flag plus?
Most of these guys are all from the Kirkland Touch Football League, except for Corey Denis. Actually works with John Moody. That's how the Cowboys came together. So from there, we asked a couple guys in the league, and we're all gamers. We had nothing to do in the wintertime. So we're just friends from the league, and it just grew into relationships. We're still buddies off the field. If you look after the games, we're all in the bar having a couple beers after the game, no matter what time it is. It's we like hanging out with each other as well. They're all great guys, and that's one thing. Again, to pitch back to the Kirk and Touch Football League, when you go back into that, you become teammates, but you also become friends. So when the season's over and you don't see each other till the following season, it's like, great, we're playing together, and then it's the beers after the game that the conversations coming in, the groups all come together. The Cowboys are a tight bunch just because they're decent people and good people to know. So if you ever have a chance to have a beer with them, enjoy. Like we were saying, Corey was talking to you about, we had the same thing we played last night, and Johnny was giving the quarterback some tips. He says, listen, there's ways you can work around to help your team out. They were I don't even remember who we played last night, but it was tough.
The Snookers
are having a hard time. Sorry, the quarterback for the Snookers are having a hard time. Corey's a good rusher too, so when you have a good rusher, the quarterback doesn't have the time to think. So when you have good guys that can sit around and talk with anybody, we'll talk the game and help each other out. And like I said, just decent human beings.
Well, that's what makes the league so great, I think, is the fact that we can all try and help each other out. Yeah. Fadi, for you, in Division 5 or Division D, who do you feel is the best player? Who's the most dominant player in the division so far that you've seen?
That's
the one guy when you see him on the other side, I really don't want to face this guy.
That I've played against Nicolas Abelhauser. Only once I played against him. I've seen him play a couple of the games. He's pretty dominant.
He's
gonna make a. I remember one catch that he did against us. Ian Jarry had his hand on the face of Nicolas, and it was he reached high in the sky, grabbed the ball like it was a big
thing. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people would agree with that right now. Nicolas Abelhauser has just been great in all his games so far. GM, last question for you. Who do you see as the biggest threat in Division C at this point? Not one person, but a team specifically. Which team do you see as the biggest threat?
Well, I mentioned earlier that there are Terror Squad and there's
Flight of the
Conchords or
Fools of the Country. Yeah.
Those are two teams. Unfortunately, they're on the same side, so you're not going to see them in the finals. Mm-hmm. But I feel like our half, like Flight of the Fools of the Country, Cobras, Trojans.
Okay.
Like I'm on the half of the conference with like the powerhouses.
Okay.
And it's going to be real difficult because.
Well, besides the Briscoe High Hawks, you don't have the Briscoe High Hawks on your side, so I think that's lucky.
I really wish we'd play each other, but yeah, it's really going to be a toss up in Division C because you really don't know who's going to go to the finals. It's going to be. Maybe one of the powerhouse teams that's been there all the time, or maybe there's going to be a dark horse team who creeps in there at the last second. Mm-hmm. Dark horse team.
Dark horse team. Well, okay. Well, we'll pay attention to that. Vince, final question for you. You're undefeated to this point of the season. Right. Who do you feel is your toughest matchup? I don't know if you've known the team that you're facing, but who do you think is the toughest matchup for you the rest of the way?
Well, and just because the way the schedule's made up, we got to play the Mongoose last game of the season, which is kind of tough in the sense that they've only lost one game, and if you're looking at the way their scores are, the only thing we can do is base ourselves on the scores, like with the Eagles and the Patriots too, is like how they're beating teams and who we've faced in the past to match up, how we match up against those guys. Yeah. But right now, for direct threat to the Cowboys, I'd say the Mongoose is pretty much our toughest competition coming up.
Okay.
And.
Which could be a big one. I mean, if let's say if they win the rest of their games, you win the rest of your games, that win could be the difference between who has the higher seed right towards the end of the season.
So the last game of the season will dictate to us where we stand on the way through.
Well, one way or the other is probably going to make game of the week.
I think so. I think that one might be the game of the week. Well, we want to thank all the guests for coming on Breaking the Huddle this week. We really appreciate everyone who comes on board, obviously. And if anyone would like to be a guest on the show, don't hesitate to send me a message or Ross Castlin a message. We're always looking for new guests. And hopefully you enjoy the show, and hopefully we'll see you guys next week. Thank you to all the guests again, and hopefully we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.